Excited to talk about France.
Je suis français.
Oh no, we're talking about France. Um, Hello, wine for real people.
Let's let's get
Let's talk about France,
let's
one of the powerhouses of the wine world.
let's get real.
Um, let's get real and diving right in. That is a wonderful map of the of France. So you
Let's
have our different regions.
so we're going to be looking at, I think we split it up into it's 10 central regions. We'll talk about nine in these next couple series, and we'll save Champagne right over here for last. We'll lump it in when we start to talk about sparkling wine production. So our other big regions, we're going to be looking at Bordeaux, we're going to be looking at Burgundy, and those are what I think of as the two major powerhouses of France when we talk about French wine production. But we'll also see that France has a lot of influence from rivers that flow in and around these different wine areas. And you'll see that most of these wine regions are based around the rivers. So we have the Loire River, we have the Rhone River, and different rivers like that. We have this river coming in from the Atlantic that feeds right in through Bordeaux. And then we have some more landlocked regions that still have influence from some water, as well as some influence from different mountains. So, James, if you want to jump into some of those regions.
So we actually have my main man, Alsace. It is right on the German border, fought for in World War One. Have a lot of Germanic influences, and we will be talking about that in one of the next videos. It has a mountain range that shelters it from like rain
The
uh,
Vosges,
and the Beaujolais. Where is that? Over here.
right there.
Beaujolais, also an important region, ma mainly growing Gamay.
And then we'll finish off
South of France.
and
Oh, we gotta go
southwest of
southwest
France.
of France. The
Um,
Dordogne.
You have the Dordogne, which is right next to Bordeaux. So we have southwest of France and south of France, having influences from the Mediterranean Sea as well as the Atlantic Ocean. So that was just a nice little overview of our regions of France. We can then start to talk about our classifications um, when we talk about labels and how we're breaking up the different regions into subregions and communes and village levels. So that is more specific from AOC to AOC. But speaking of AOCs, we're not talking about a New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, although that would be a fun video. I think we should add that to the catalog.
You think?
Why
It's a
not?
nice way to remember it. Um, a lot of the wine world is in French, and since we're in France, everything's going to be in French, obviously. So your AOC or AOP that you'd see in a bottle, AOP is coming around on more modern bottles, but they mean the same thing. So it's Appellation d'Origine Contrôlée or Protégé, um, depending on what the label says. And it essentially just means a very specific vineyard area with a very strict set of winemaking rules, grapes you can grow, winemaking processes you can do, all to preserve the style or the renown of the region of which it comes from. It's pretty much a guarantee that this wine comes from this place.
And I'll note that this little pyramid shows three levels. We'll have AOC, and then you could put a level even higher than that in this region that would go to your more specific levels within your AOC. You could have your commune level, your estate level, or your village level. So this just generally goes over the three, and that sort of changes from AOC to AOC. And when we're talking about these big AOCs, we'll go back to this map from our previous slide, but it essentially just talks about like these large regions. These are our large AOCs: Bordeaux AOC, Loire AOC, Champagne AOC, Alsace AOC, ET, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but your AOCs are essentially going to coincide with your European standard of the PDO levels of wine. We'll then move on to our IGP, which is essentially a good way to remember is it equates to PGI, and the two are just the inverses of each other. IGP is PGI backwards, and vice versa. So this is just what the French call this PGI level of wine. They refer to it as the IGP, Indication Géographique Protégée.
And sometimes winemakers, let's say in a specific AOC, do not want to make the traditional style of the region. They might choose to make their wine an IGP wine, which has less regulation on grapes and winemaking practices. And finally, at the bottom of the pyramid, we have Vin de France, Vin de Pays. Pretty much that just equates to wine without a specific geographical indication, meaning that these grapes can come from anywhere within France. It's very low regulated. Winemakers are able to do whatever they please with their wine.
And we'll see this a lot with larger scale wine productions, not necessarily of higher quality. They'll get their grapes from pretty much anywhere they can get their hands on them. And we're looking at this. The system is fairly new in terms of French wine. This AOC system didn't come around until around the early to mid 20th century, so it's fairly new, and there are still some adaptations to be made. And there was another level on this pyramid. I think that just got taken away a couple years ago.
2011, a couple of years ago. That's like a decade, dude. I'm old.
No comment. What was it? VDQ?
Yeah,
or
that sounds
something to
right.
that effect. So
It acted as a stepping stone to get to AOC.
right. So that was just a little overview on France and the Vin de France, or the wine of France.
Oui, oui.
Oui, oui, monsieur. All right.
Keep it real people.
Keep
And
it.
we'll see you next time. Talk about French regions.
Oh,
Oh boy.
mon
Oh
Dieu.
mon Dieu.
Mon Dieu.